Okay guys, so we have finally gathered all of our pieces that we need to complete our All About Me collage. So you should have your background. You can see mine right here. I've got my background paper. You should have your completed Bitmoji. Your background should have been painted in using one of the techniques that we went over in class. You should have cut out at least 3 or more words that describe you as an individual. So I've got all my different words and different shapes and how I cut them out. And then I have 3 or more pictures that I'm gonna plan on using. Maybe I'll use all of them, maybe I won't. And then you will be needing scissors, a pair of scissors, and a glue stick for this final step in our project. Okay, so I'm gonna take these off to the side. And the next thing I'm going to do is I am gonna carefully cut out my Bitmoji. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll see what the next step is. And I'm gonna save the paper that was left over from this half. I'm just gonna cut that off right now, and I may even save some of those scraps, pieces of white paper for other things later on. Okay, so make sure you take your time when you're cutting. Make sure that you turn your scissors and your paper as necessary so that you can cut that out neatly. All right, so we're ready for our next step. We're gonna bring our background back in here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna begin putting this collage together, almost like we're putting a puzzle together. So what I recommend is you start picking up your pieces and thinking about where you might want to put them. I do encourage you to overlap, and I wouldn't glue anything down yet. What I want you to do here is literally just start to kind of play around with ideas for where you think you might put something, because the truth is you may end up adjusting what you think you're going to do and changing it. So you don't want to glue anything in place 100% yet. So like I might move this down a little bit, and maybe I'm going to move this down. So I'll show you kind of what the bottom looks like. So I'm just kind of playing around with my placement. Notice that these are overlapping and that my Bitmoji is actually going off the page, which is fine. For right now, I'm just practicing ideas. So let's see where else I want to put things. I'm also going to be leaving some room for adding my name at some point. Still trying to work through these ideas. So I'm just going to play around, and you'll see how I move things around on here before I make a final decision about what I'm doing. Okay, so I may make some adjustments after this. I'm just going to point out a couple of key features so far that I want you to think about. So think about your placement of your Bitmoji. Decide whether you want it fully on the paper or whether you want it to go off the paper. Please think about overlapping your images. When I talk about overlapping, I'm just talking about putting things on top of each other so that there's layering. So we see that this is behind the Bitmoji's on top of it, and then on top of that is this image, so that's layering. We also see that happening with the basket of blue crabs, which I associate with being a Marylander, up behind my head, and then we see my layering right here with these two images, as well as some layering happening up here as well, and here also. Okay, so the one thing I want you to make sure you have room to do, the last step on here, is thinking about adding your name to your collage. So you've got a couple of options on how you do that. And again, I'm still playing around with how I may finish this. You can do a banner drawing on a piece of white paper like this. Put your name on it inside, cut it out, and glue it on. You could do that. You could use stencils or a pattern. So if you have patterns or stencils at home, you could do that and put your name in. You could cut the letters out of magazines and glue them in. Which I think is what I'm gonna do. I've been thinking about what I want to do, and I think at this point I'm leaning towards cutting my letters out. But that's up to you. So make sure that before you glue anything down and in place, that you've thought about what technique you're going to use for your name. So I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to work on finding the letters for my name, cutting those out and arranging them. And then once I've done that, you'll see me go through the gluing process. Okay, so while my video was paused, I went through a magazine and I found the different letters for my name to spell it out. Because that's the decision I made, is that I wanted to continue using magazine pages to do this. And so I went through, purposefully thought about the different colors. So I wasn't just using all black and white letters because I wanted to incorporate more color. I also thought about how I wanted to cut each letter out. I decided I did not want to do them all in little squares. So you'll notice I cut around the letters. You'll also notice that I added some more images. So I was looking for letters. I found some other pieces that were relevant to describing who I am as an individual. And I've included those on there. Okay. So the next thing I would do, and I recommend this for you, is that once you've laid these all out and you're happy with the composition, is I want you to take your phone, if you have one, and I want you to take a picture of this with your phone. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to hold this over top and I'm going to take a nice shot of my collage. And what you'll notice is, so here it is on my phone. I've got the whole image in there. And the reason I'm doing this is so that as I begin to glue things down, I can go back and remember what my composition actually looked like. Because as we start to take things off and glue them back down, sometimes things get knocked out of place or we're not quite sure where we had something. So having this image is going to allow me to reference that and think about, oh yeah, this is where I had the H, or this is where I had that heart glued down. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to start gluing this. So as you're thinking about your layers, you're going to start with your bottom layer getting glued down first. So I'm going to identify some of my bottom layers for you. So the crabs in the basket would be one of my bottom layers. This would be the next one. This item up here, and these tropical trees down here. So all of this is going to get glued down first before I glue anything else. So we're gonna watch me do this here in just a second. Okay, so I'm gonna start picking these pieces up carefully and taking them off just so that I can begin to glue on some of those bottom layers. So I'm gonna lift this up, and I'm not gonna put glue on top of this. I am going to put the glue on the back of my magazine page. And my recommendation to students is that you always put glue on the smaller of the two pieces of paper. So this is definitely smaller than my background, so this is what the glue is going to go on. I don't have to cover the entire back with glue. I usually do just an outline of it. And I do recommend using a glue stick, and the reason for that is that glue sticks tend not to wrinkle nearly as much as liquid Elmer's glue. So I do like using glue sticks for collage technique. Okay, so I've got that one in place. I've glued that down. I'm going to take another bottom layer And my next bottom layer I'm going to glue down is actually going to be this piece up here. So again, I'm going to lift these other items off. I'm going to put glue on the piece that's getting glued onto the large paper. And you'll notice in my finished composition, we're not actually seeing a ton of background because I have included a lot of images and words. I think the more images and words you include, the better your collage is going to look. And the background is really just there to add a little bit of color where we don't have images glued down. So I'm going back in and I am taking a look at my artwork to think about, where did I actually have this placed? This goes all the way over to the corner here. So I'm using my picture on my phone as a guideline to glue this where I had wanted it. I'm going to press that firmly in place. Okay, and then I'm going to finish gluing the rest of it, and we'll check back in when I'm done. Okay? So I have finished gluing this all together, and I want to point out a couple of things. So we've already talked about overlapping and layering, which is going to lead to a better finished product. So I've got a lot of that happening with my words and my pictures. I also want to talk about the direction of how I place things. So while certainly I do have some things that go left to right, I also have things going in different directions or different angles. Okay, so we see my name is angled up towards the right-hand corner, whereas this little map of Maryland is angling up towards the left-hand corner. And different things are, some of the items are going off the page. Now, I have a couple of choices with that. I can leave it so that they remain off the page, or I can go back in with my scissors, carefully turn the back of my paper over and use those scissors to trim off the extra edges that are no longer needed. So I would have to do that very neatly. I definitely am going to do that for some of this, but I don't think I'm going to do it for all of it. So I may actually leave a lot of my edges hanging off, but again, that's your choice as to how you do that. Now, once you have this done and everything is glued solidly in place, remember that your job is to get this photographed and posted to Flipgrid. Before you get it photographed and posted to Flipgrid, I highly recommend that you checked the rubric and the criteria to see if you have everything. So let's see how I did. Do I have a watercolor background using one of the techniques from our visual journal practice sheet? Yes, I definitely do. I used markers and salt combined to do my background. The next thing I asked for you to do was draw a Bitmoji self-portrait. Absolutely, I have mine, so I'm good on that. The next thing I asked you to do was find 3 words that were told us something about you. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 words, so I have twice as many as I actually needed. The next thing I asked you to do was find 3 images that told us something about you. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8, okay? And then the last step was making sure you had your name. I definitely have it. So I've hit all of those criteria. I'm ready to photograph my work and post it to Flipgrid. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to seeing your guys' All About Me collages, and I can't wait to learn more about you from your artwork.